The lost colony of Roanoke vanished without a scream, without a single body, leaving behind only one word carved into wood. Tonight, we uncover what history may not want you to know. In the fading light of late summer, 1587, 3 small English ships dropped anchor off the coast of a wooded island. From them disembarked 115 souls, men, women, and children, their clothes still damp with sea spray, their eyes wide with a mixture of hope and dread. They were not soldiers of fortune, but ordinary families, farmers who knew the weight of a plow, carpenters who could shape timber into shelter, and blacksmiths whose hammers would soon ring in a silent land. Their leader was John White, a gentleman whose talent lay not in warfare, but in delicate watercolors and meticulous map-making. He had been tasked with an impossible duty: to establish the city of Raleigh, England's first permanent claim in the New World, a beacon of empire on a shore that did not want them. Among the passengers was White's own daughter, Eleanor Dare, heavy with child. In a rough-hewn shelter on this unfamiliar continent, she gave birth to a daughter she named Virginia. That tiny cry in the wilderness was more than a birth. It was a declaration. Virginia Dare was the first English child born in America, a living symbol of a future they were determined to forge. A root meant to grip this foreign soil. They built a fort, erected cottages, and prayed for a gentle winter. But the land was not empty, and its memory was long. Just 2 years earlier, a previous English garrison had left a legacy of betrayal and bloodshed with the local Secatan people. Suspicion hung in the air like coastal fog. More immediately, their supplies were vanishing. They had arrived too late to plant, and the arithmetic of survival was turning against them. Faced with the grim specter of starvation, the colonists made a desperate plea to Governor White. He must sail back to England and return with the reinforcements and provisions they needed to survive. He would return within a year. As his ship shrank to a speck on the horizon, the settlers were left utterly alone on the rim of a continent vast beyond their comprehension. Their world narrowed to the clearing they had made, and the endless, watchful sea. They waited. The first year passed, then a second. No sail broke the horizon. Their lifeline, John White, was trapped in a nightmare an ocean away. England was fighting for its very survival against the Spanish Armada. Every ship, every sailor, every sack of grain was a weapon in a national war for survival. For 3 agonizing years, White was a ghost in the corridors of power, begging, bargaining, and failing to secure passage back to his family. The colony he governed existed only in his increasingly desperate letters and fading sketches. Finally, in August of 1590, aboard a privateering ship more interested in Spanish gold than English settlers, John White waded ashore once more on Roanoke. What met him was a silence so absolute it has reverberated for centuries. The settlement was not destroyed. It was undone. The cottages had been carefully dismantled, their timbers neatly removed. The stronghold's wooden palisade was gone, the posts pulled cleanly from the earth. There was no evidence of chaos, no scattered possessions, no hidden caches, no signs of fire or battle. It was as if the forest itself had patiently, methodically, reclaimed the space. The only thing out of place was the profound and utter absence of human life. Yet, they had not left without a final communication. On a post flanking the entrance to the vanished fort, 3 letters were carved: C-R-O, and on the trunk of a great solitary tree at the settlement's heart, a single word was cut deep into the flesh of the wood: Croatoan. To White, this word was a lifeline. Croatoan was the name of an island to the south, the home of a people who had once extended a hand in friendship. Before his departure, a plan had been established. If the colonists had to relocate, they would carve their destination. If they were in grave danger or under attack, they would add the mark of a Maltese cross beside it. A desperate hope must have flooded him. They had left a clear trail. They had gone to their allies. They were alive, but the Atlantic had one more cruelty in store. A great storm was gathering. The ship's captain, his hold laden with plunder and his crew mutinous at the delay, refused to sail the short distance south to Croatoan Island. He gave White a brutal choice: come now or be marooned. Helpless, John White was dragged back to the ship. He watched the shoreline until it melted into the dusk, never to return. The mystery was now complete, sealed not with a solution, but with a single unanswered word. So began history's greatest cold case. Where did 115 men, women, and children simply disappear? Modern investigation points not to a single fate, but to several plausible, haunting possibilities. The prevailing theory is integration and survival. Confronted with the undeniable truth of their abandonment, the colonists made the only rational choice for survival. They sought to join the people who knew this land. They likely splintered into smaller family groups to present less of a threat and traveled south to Croatoan Island or inland up the winding rivers, seeking assimilation with the Croatoan or other Algonquian tribes. This is not mere speculation. Decades later, leaders of the subsequent Jamestown settlement collected persistent, credible accounts from multiple native sources. They spoke of villages where people had gray eyes, wore fragments of English clothing, and lived in houses built in the European style. They even told of a place called Roanoke, where a group using English tools had been attacked years before. Centuries later, the Lumbee people of North Carolina, with their distinctive English surnames, oral histories of coming across the water, and early facility with the English language, present one of the most compelling living links to the lost settlers. The search has moved from legend to science in the late 20th and early 21st centuries. Archaeologists no longer dig solely on Roanoke Island. On Hatteras Island, excavations have revealed a stunning co-mingling of lives: a 16th century English copper ring, a trigger guard from an arquebus, and folded lead shot, buried alongside Croatoan shell beads and pottery. 50 miles inland, at a place known as Site X, archaeologists have unearthed European pottery, a unique lead seal used for cloth bales, and metalworking debris, evidence not of a lost colony, but perhaps of a relocated one, or of a sustained trading outpost. Each artifact is a whisper, a fragment of a sentence we are still learning to read. Yet, the mystery is also shadowed by our own longing for an ending. The Dare Stones, a series of rocks that surfaced in the 1930s, carved with a dramatic saga from Eleanor Dare, were a masterful hoax. They tell us less about 1587 and more about our eternal desire to turn unsettling mystery into satisfying story. So, what did happen to the Lost Colony of Roanoke? The poetic answer is that they became phantoms. The historical truth is more powerful. They did not vanish. They were transformed. Croatoan was likely not a mystery, but a message. It was a forwarding address for a rescue that came too late. The most compelling conclusion is not a singular dramatic cataclysm, but a slow, human unfolding. A story of fragile people making a series of brutal practical choices to see another day. They ceased to be an outpost of Elizabethan England and began the unrecorded, profound journey of becoming something new. They crossed the final frontier, which was not of land, but of identity. The haunting power of this story lies in that one word, carved not for us, but for a father who never reached it. It is a clue that points not to an end, but to a multitude of beginnings. They were not lost. In the most profound sense, they may have been the first to truly find America, not as conquerors, but as people who had to shed their old world to survive in a new one. Their true legacy is the unsettling, powerful idea that sometimes history's greatest stories are not about those who were found, but about those who had the resilience to disappear and become part of the unknown. But the search isn't over. The story is still being written, with every new artifact, every scrap of evidence. And there are more stories like this, hiding in the shadows of history, waiting for the right questions. If you're captivated by the secrets the past refuses to give up, then your investigation starts right here. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're just getting started. The next mystery is waiting.